Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for coming here. There we go. So anyway, I do plan on talking about these components during my talk. Give a brief overview of the e-learning continuum, talk about Adobe Connect, which is what I applied in my classes to do classroom lecture capture, some of the features thereof, the lecture capture itself, and some of the challenges that exist when you're avant-garde with any new technology, and talk about some of the related activities that I am involved in that relate to classroom lecture capture. So to begin, I want to begin by looking at the transformation that a learner undergoes as they proceed through their schooling. So we have learners starting off typically in an instructor-led environment, moving to guided inquiry, and then ultimately to a learner-led environment. Now the table shows the transformations in the context of conducting a scientific experiment. So from selecting a research question, where in an instructor-led environment, the learner uses questions that are posed by the instructor, all the way over to a learner-led environment, where the learner ultimately poses the questions. This entire table is available if anyone wants it, but on the bottom side of it, when you go to reporting, in an instructor-led environment, the learner simply answers questions that are posed by the instructor. Over to the learner-led environment, the learner independently prepares a report without much guidance or direction from the instructor. Now, this progression from an instructor-led to a guided inquiry to a learner-led environment occurs when the learner gains knowledge about the subject, gains skills, and confidence in conducting, in this case, conducting experiments. The transition from working explicitly under the direction of an instructor, which would be considered a dependent learner, to being independent of the instructor, which would be a self-directed learner. This transition occurs over a long period of time. And at the bottom, there's a scaling talking about what occurs in grade school, through undergraduate education, and through graduate school. But ultimately, what we want as a university is to have our graduates leaving with a BSc or with a postgraduate degree, or with a graduate degree, to be ultimately self-directed learners as they move into the careers that they take. Ultimately, the learning environment must accommodate this transformation. And so I'm going to focus my talk on that relatively recent newcomer, new instructional strategy, and that would be e-learning. So ultimately, we use a plethora of instructional strategies beyond our traditional lecture. We come to class, we have images, we use models, we do demonstrations, we show videos, we bring computer software in or make computer software available to the students. All of this to convey information to the learner in different modes. For about the past 10, 15 years, the use of the internet or online learning has become a very large additional resource that students are using. Now, it's still one instructional strategy, but it is a resource that is increasingly expected by students and amazingly increasingly utilized by students. On the left-hand side over here, we have face-to-face. So this is our traditional class that doesn't use any online technology. The content is simply delivered in a classroom by the instructor to the students, and it caters very strongly to dependent learners. People are just receiving information, doing as they are instructed. The next level is web-facilitated instruction, in which a course simply uses some online technology to augment a face-to-face classroom. Now, at the U of A, we have course management systems, and pretty much all of the instructors use eClass to provide the syllabus, the course outline. They may have their assignments posted to eClass, or they may have a quiz that is done online, and all of that is some degree of web-facilitated instruction. On the far side of this, we have online instruction, where a course is predominantly taught online. Now, it's not strictly at the 100% level, the range 80 to 100, provides for one or an occasional face-to-face meeting between the students and the instructor, or the students getting together, not virtually online, but getting together in groups in a classroom to potentially practice or give a presentation or that type of idea. But online instruction is typically without any face-to-face formal instruction, and this strongly caters to self-directed learners. The one in the middle is blended instruction. Now, this is a mix of online and face-to-face instruction that ultimately is presented here. Now, Ron Austin of York University has spent a lot of time looking at blended instruction, and so this is a slide from what he presented at the Blended Learning Symposium from 2 weeks ago. At the top, we have the web enhanced model where there's no reduction in face-to-face time, the online model where all of the activities are conducted online, and because this is Ron's area of interest, he's divided the blended models up into 5 different categories. But a key component of blended learning is that some of the traditional class time is now done online. So for example, in the first 2 models here, whether it is relating it to our instructional style, we have 3 classes per week or 2 classes per week. You can either take 1 or 2 of those classes and convert them into virtual instructional models, and you get a variant of blended learning. The one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later is down here as number 5, which is hybrid lectures. And in hybrid lectures or hybrid courses, students have the option of attending the class either physically in the classroom or virtually online. They are able to self-select how they receive the course information. Now, how do students do? There's been quite a few studies done since about the 1990s onwards on distance delivery. Now, the internet really didn't exist back then. We're talking about mailing out videos or workbooks or the like, but a lot of that has changed. The evolution of distance delivery or blended instruction has dramatically changed in the past 25 years. And so these are all fairly recent reviews or papers on the state of e-learning. Michael Moore and Kersley did a systematic review of basically everything that was done since the 1990s. And what they ultimately came up with is that there's been numerous studies published, but the results are pretty much inconclusive. Some of them show no difference. Some show online as being better. Some show it as being worse. Ron Austin at the symposium noted that, in quotes, low achievers do poorer in blended learning environments. Now, I took Ron to task with his term low achievers because I really like to believe that these students are just not yet self-directed learners. They're still dependent on the instructor, and when you put them in an environment in which they're not comfortable, they're not going to achieve to their full potential. But it is an observation that has been reported in many studies. Zhu and Yeagers looked at 18,000 students in Washington State, and they looked at the students from 1st to 4th year, where the students were able to either select online or face-to-face instruction. And what they ultimately found was that persistence in a course, i.e. the student's willingness to stay in the course, and the course grade both negatively correlated with the degree of online content. So what they ultimately found was that going from comparing online and face-to-face, persistence decreased by 6%. 6% more students dropped when they were taking online courses, and the GPA was actually 0.3 GPA units lower, which is basically 1 letter grade. So there's still a lot of stuff being done in this area. Another fact that I have from many years ago, I don't have the most recent statistics, but I was in committees where we were talking about distance delivery when I was teaching at McEwen, and the statistic came up from Athabasca University, and where they do solely online instruction or distance delivery instruction, and their attrition rates for some of their courses were upwards of 60%. So this was before the internet came to have real-time interaction, but it does show that there's a lot of progression that is. So ultimately, why am I talking about blended and online instruction, since there is uh, no real data to show that it's better, and there's some data that shows that it is equivalent or marginally worse than face-to-face instruction. Well, several reasons. What I ultimately ended up doing is web enhanced learning. So I'm looking at web enhanced instruction where there is no decrease in the face-to-face time. Um, Ultimately, it is a new technology as well. So comparing what was happening not like 5 years ago to what is available today, the technology is continually evolving and it's an active area of research to see how positive and productive it can be in terms of learning students. And ultimately, from a student perspective, students are expecting e-learning environments. They perceive the e-learning environment to be beneficial to them. And so by providing them with that type of resource, we actually look a lot better. So if we use an instructional strategy that the students believe to be beneficial and find a way of doing it such that it doesn't negatively affect the student's performance, it's ultimately win-win. We are conveying information in a way that students want the information. The students ultimately become interested because the information is being conveyed in a way that they are willing to learn. We're moving them along the path to being a self-directed learner. The students in an online environment have a lot more opportunity to help each other. So they're developing their peer instructional skills, and they're working together to solve problems and learn the material. And ultimately, as I just alluded to earlier, their perception of the instructor improves with our effective use of technology. So what are the learner preferences? This is just two studies that have been done, one by the Sloan Consortium in about 2007, and this by Ron. Don't know the date on this one, but it was presented at the symposium. And what we see in here, realizing that web-enhanced learning, blended learning, and multiple modes all deal with the idea that you have information being conveyed in more than one manner. That adds up to just under 60% of the students preferred some degree of mix between traditional face-to-face instruction and online instruction, which converges very well with Ron's results of blended being preferred by up to almost 50% of the students. So basically, students appear to want multimodal access to resource. They want the opportunity to learn on their own time and in their own learning environment. So this slide presents the features of face-to-face instructional modalities. Now, I'm not going to read them all to you, but as you read down the face-to-face and the online models, you'll see that here, whether you want to consider them to be strengths or weaknesses of this instructional modality is very much dependent on the instructor who's planning to prepare a course and the students that are in the course. But we as instructors, of course, want to create an instructional environment that conveys the most information to the students and that caters to their instructional expectations. And the key point is we don't want to do this without decreasing the rigor of the course and the success of our students. So the environment now stretches from the traditional face-to-face into some degree of online instruction, and that best environment varies depending on the abilities of the student, how far they are along the path to being a self-directed learner, on their experience with technology. And while a lot of people are saying, oh, students are great with technology, they may know how to use their smartphone, the basics. They may know how to play games on the web, but try to get them to put a function into Excel. And you run into a little bit, you can do that? Sadly, that was a group of engineers. Okay, so yes, their ability to use technology is limited to, and many of them are very good at it, but some of them have only a rudimentary understanding of the capabilities of the technology that they have available to them. And finally, one other thing is it depends on the meta expectations of the course and the program. Of course, we want to move students along the path to being a self-directed learner, and we want to improve their problem-solving skills. They're not all going to stay as chemists, whether it doesn't matter what field they go into. If they have better problem-solving skills, they'll be more valuable to their employer. So looking at this figure, on the left-hand side, we have a red line that pretty much looks like web enhanced in an instructional environment. Depending on what the students are coming out of high school with, and I'll be talking about that in a little bit too, this may be completely suitable for students in first and second year courses as we're moving them along the path to being independent learners. And the progression to the green one as a blended course and the purple one as an online course kind of mirrors the transition to senior undergraduate courses and then into graduate school. So, to summarize, you can read, I can read too, so I'm not going to read them all to you. I do want to focus on the third point though. We provide web-enhanced learning already through eClass. The idea of just putting a course syllabus or assignments online is a form of web-enhanced learning. But the students are able to create their own learning environments very, very easily through things like Facebook, MySpace, and the like. They also have access to a plethora of e-learning resources. Wikipedia, whether you like it or not, YouTube, whether you like it or not, and the Khan Academy all provide students with information that they can use to try and understand what is being presented in a class. We often do not have access to the learning resources that the students create for themselves. Facebook groups can be private, locked, by invitation only, so you don't know that they exist. And I don't know if many people here remember the fiasco that occurred at Ryerson University in 2008. No, you don't remember it at all? Oh, it was big. Okay, back then it was big news. Anyway, the Ryerson fiasco, engineering students created a lockdown Facebook site where they were actually uploading the answers to the assignment so other students could copy it. And the university acted, in my mind, very inappropriately by basically disciplining and all the students involved and expelling the people that were involved in setting this up. Whether the students copy assignments that are posted online or they're doing it outside of the classroom going, I can't remember how to do, like, let me copy number 4 from you, it happens. And instead of trying to crack down on the use of technology, my perception is we need to open the doors to that, realize that students are doing this, and use the technology to our benefit. So we can, of course, create our own Facebook groups. We can provide links to Wikipedia and YouTube and the like. This allows us to guide the students to resources that we feel are good, but it also gives us access to, for example, the Facebook site to see what the students are sharing with each other. And it also happens to show us as being a little bit tech savvy. Within the University of Alberta, they installed Adobe Connect, which is an instructional resource, but it is also a very powerful resource that facilitates additional e-learning on campus. So what is Adobe Connect? It is a web-based application that facilitates virtual meetings, presentations, and course instruction. The U of A invested in Adobe Connect about a year ago for distance delivery courses. It is also now being used to record and broadcast administrative speeches. And the Center for Teaching and Learning is using it to record many of the presentations that they give. Center of Teaching and Learning has used Adobe Connect at the last symposium that we were just at to bring in virtual speakers. Someone attended via Adobe Connect link, and participants can attend sessions virtually. Within the department, this could easily be used to allow faculty to attend departmental meetings when they happen to be away at conferences that they appropriately scheduled. Sorry. But if they have something important to say, it provides them with an opportunity to do this. And it actually isn't that hard to set up to do it. It can be used exactly in that fashion to prepare a virtual meeting. It is a professional version of Skype. For the recipient, the other person doesn't need to have any software installed on the computer. One person, an instructor or a person leading the meeting, can create this, send an email with a link, and instantly they install an add-in on their browser that comes up automatically. They have a two-way connection where they can share all of the resources I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. This could be valuable within the department to screen prospective grad students or prospective faculty by having a conversation with them before you invite them to come for more formal interviews and discussions. Now, in terms of instruction, which is where my realm is, Adobe Connect is integrated into eClass, and what that provides is seamless integration into my course, and it provides for simple enrollment management. I don't have to do anything. What is presented here is the default sharing layout. So we have a main page where the instructor can share a document, a screen, or a whiteboard to show material. Up in the top right is a webcam. Below that, we have an attendees registrar, so people can see who's actually present in the course. And below that is a chat dialog box. Now, these layouts are easy to change and easy to create your own. What are some of the features of Adobe Connect? Well, we can present PowerPoint, PDF, multimedia files, present local programs that are installed on the local computer and webcams, create public and private chats so students can speak to the group or in small little groups. We have virtual breakout rooms. We have the ability to create polls, which turns Adobe Connect into a replacement for iClicker. The students can record information and they can share information with each other, and ultimately allows for file sharing from the instructor out to the students. An important aspect of Adobe Connect is that all of this can be recorded. It can be watched in real time, but it also can be recorded and shared with anyone else. And that's where my interest comes in classroom lecture capture. In reality, this presentation is actually being recorded using Adobe Connect. So this is the screen that a student would typically see in my class. I'm not going to go through all of these features again. There's a lot to learn. It's interesting, but the Center for Teaching and Learning has workshops on this, and their instructors are much better than me at doing all of the features up there. My focus has actually just been on classroom lecture capture. I'm only using the top 3 bullets in my classroom, primarily presenting PowerPoint and PDF files, presenting local programs and webcams, which I'll demonstrate in a little bit, and the use of public chats to allow students to communicate in class. Because my class is face-to-face, my layout is much simpler than the one before. Excuse me while this thing decides to come back. So this is a typical layout in my classroom. Kind of mirrors on itself. We have a list of all of the layouts that I have on the right-hand side. This is a picture, of course, on the right-hand side is where currently for Adobe Connect. I have a main screen that has the PowerPoint slides, and I have a small little chat window down there that allows students to communicate with me and with each other. I don't use a webcam because, well, for 2 reasons. One, I'm teaching a face-to-face classroom. The students are expected to be in class. This is just a different way of presenting the same material. But also, I don't normally stand right here. I normally move about the classroom to get closer to engage with the students on a more personal level. Now, this classroom doesn't have a document camera available to it, so I have a short video clip of what students would see on the document camera. Now, this video is when they play it back after class. So the value you get is 10,000 bar, which is effectively 10,000 atmospheres. So you get 1.01 times 10 to the 4 bar. as a pressure. Okay, so the pressure inside of those cartridges is immense, and ultimately that energy stored as increased pressure is what drives the bullet forward. You also get used to hearing your own voice, which is a little bit different in a lot of cases. So I get used to that. Different though. Any case, that's what the video on playback, what the document camera looks like, what the video on playback looks like. You can see that there's some discussion in the chat here. This is from what we were talking about earlier in class. It shows up for the students, and so we can actually have a record of what questions were asked. It's also possible to hook in a web camera without a problem. It's just another layout that I've got. Instead of the webcam being the small little pod in the corner, which is a picture of the instructor, I've used the webcam for capturing demonstrations and presenting that so that it records that and captures it for the students to see after class. Should note that it's a fairly seamless transition. I just have to click on the layout and it moves to the next. There is a small transition period of about a second. I know a lot of people in here do like using our iClicker, and so I just wanted to show this slide. This happens to be just a layout I created with 2 polls in it. Students can create instructor can create a multiple choice question. They can create a multiple answer question or a short answer question. And the nice thing about using Adobe Connect is because it is integrated into eClass, it already automatically records the student responses associated with their ID. So there's no longer going back and trying to match everything up with your register. It's already recorded there. I haven't played with this a lot. I don't require my students to bring this technology in. This is an option for them. I'm just trying to figure it out and figure out how to use it. But it is something that could easily be used by instructors to as an iClicker replacement. Now to give you a bit of a background on this. Chuck and I attended, and Alex actually was there too, a couple of workshops in August on Adobe Connect. And poor Kim, I raised my hand and I kind of went, so could I use this for classroom lecture capture? And she looked at me. There was a bit of a pregnant pause and went, should be possible. So with Kim's help, with help from IST, Tom Bowman, we managed to get this working for pretty much the first or second week in September. And now, by about middle of September, we got this thing polished such that it does about 90% of what I want it to do. This is a survey I conducted in mid-October, so students had only really been using this for about 4 or 5 weeks, asking them what their perceptions are on a lecture capture and how it can be improved. Again, I'm assuming that you can read them, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask on them. But the ones that I want to point out are the idea here that shy students can ask questions via chat. That was one of my driving reasons for doing this. I want to try to get as much engagement in my classroom as possible. And yes, there are people that are not willing to ask anything in class, especially put up their hand and ask a question. But here I provided them with an opportunity to, through a simple chat dialog box, type in their question. It doesn't pull their full name up. They have first name and whatever their question or statement is. I have responded via the chat, or I've also responded to the class as a whole, depending on the type of question. The chat does derail in the sense that students do take it on wild tangents. I can hide it. I can make it go away as necessary. But in talking with other people, I'm very happy to hear that they also see their class, going off on tangents in e-learning environments as well. So that's something that I was hoping for. That was one of the feedback that I got. The next 2 are new and interesting. Decreased stress knowing videos are available. It makes sense now that you think about it. students don't have to madly copy down all of the notes of the instructor because they can always go back and watch the video and copy the things that they may have missed because they were actually listening to the instructor explain what's going on. And the last one, valuable if I am sick or away from sports. That's actually really cool too. Now they're not hacking and coughing in my classroom. They're at home hacking and coughing or going to their other classes. They can do this virtually. The ones that are on sports teams, I have a number of students that are on collegiate teams and are traveling every second or third week. And in the past, I've talked with instructors, they're missing a good portion of the course material, especially on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture system. So here we've got a way that they can actually attend virtually. If they happen to be free during class time or during any of my class times, they can log in and actually attend class and communicate via the chat module. Or if they are unable to attend because they're traveling or playing at the time of the class, the video is available so they can go in and literally watch everything occurring as it occurred in class. Major drawback of this for students that want to use it in classroom is that they need a laptop, tablet, or smartphone in class to engage with this technology. Here's some numerical feedback and improvement suggestions that were provided by the students. Now this was recorded about 5 weeks into the course, mid-October. So I could probably do it again next term and get results. But the results that I've got up here are consistent with other published reports. The one that is a little bit low is the bottom one, where only 2% indicated that videos were an excuse to skip. The published results range from about 5% to 20% say, there's videos, I'm out of here. This doesn't include hybrid learning. Okay, if people want to attend virtually, they're still in class. That doesn't count. It's just when I have something better to do, I'm not going to go to class, I'll watch the video later. The other one that is of interest is that 34% followed along using Adobe Connect in class. And as I mentioned, I do walk around the classroom. So when I'm standing at the back of the classroom in a nice tiered lecture theater, I see lots and lots of white screens because my PowerPoints look like that. It's pretty much white. And so either they have the PowerPoint up and it's a skeleton set of PowerPoint notes and they're writing in the remainder of the material with whatever technology they have, either handwriting or typing it in, or we've got them using Adobe Connect up with this interface, what they will see, and they're actually hopefully listening to me and taking notes as necessary as well. So a lot of students are following along in class using this technology. What about me, from my perspective? Yes, sir. Some of the challenges. Because the university was not expecting this to be done, the classroom computers are not configured the same. If they were at least configured the same, it would be nice. But pretty much every computer is configured differently. So I have to spend about 5 to 7 minutes configuring the classroom computer. I think I'm down to 3 to 4 minutes now. But for a while there, I would walk in at 10 to, as the other instructors like madly trying to finish, and I would be ready to go with a minute or two to spare. Adobe Connect does have a problem with the PowerPoint files. It does lose fonts that aren't standard fonts. It loses any embedded audio that you may have. But that's something that that's being worked on. And of all the other things here, saving as a movie fails a good percentage of the time. This is between Chuck, who's done this, me, and talking with people at IST who have to do this on a regular basis. They basically have to record every movie twice because it's likely going to fail in the saving to a movie file. And it has to be saved as a movie in real time. You can't actually just download this compressed thing. This saving as a movie is not something that we need to do on a regular basis. I can flip over here. I can simply go over here, go on a virtual tangent. I'm going to go stop sharing that link, and I'm going to share it with Opera, which is the browser I use. Voila. So this is my eClass introduction to course. So if I click on Chem 101, takes a few seconds to load. This is what the students have. Somewhere down here is inClass Live. That's what I called Adobe Connect to give it a moniker. Clicking on that, this one takes a few seconds to load. And this is exactly what I did a little while ago. I clicked in and clicked Join Meeting. And then it brought me back to that other page. You can see down below, these are the recordings that I did to prepare for this class. So prepare for this presentation. So this is what a student would need to do, is just click on this and the video would open. They don't need to actually, I don't need to download and save it as a movie file and make it available to students. Students would come in here, click on it, and away it goes. Right now, by the way, they are private. I just simply have to go click and say make public, and voila, now my students will. But normal day-to-day class operation, you don't have to do it. What I'm planning on doing with the talk that I'm giving right now is saving it as a movie. I can also go in and edit it too, edit out all my stutters and stumbles, and make this wonderful, beautiful presentation. Yeah, and that make available to everyone here. But I can also save it as a movie, such that people can go and like I can present it to other people. I can, just looking at this down here. Here's a link right here. If I take this and I send it to anyone in the world, they will be able to log in and see that presentation. It's working 95, 98% for regular operation, but if I do want to take it and turn it into a video that I take and export elsewhere, that's where the problems come in. The other thing that comes out of this that I run into, and this is not a technological issue, this is the microphones in the classrooms. Well, this is hooked into mic 1. When the previous instructor walks out wearing mic 1, there's no audio on my slide. Mic 2 isn't hooked into the podium computers. So run into that as a problem too. So I've chatted with Christy, and what we're going to do is send them all an email in January going, we would really appreciate that you return the mic that I'm also doing. What are some of the other activities that I've been involved with is because I'm interested in this, CTL and IST have, approached me. We're working together, but we're also working to streamline this to make it simpler for other instructors to do classroom lecture capture. We want to make it such that it's pretty much a turnkey operation or push button operation, not a lot of configuring the computer to make it all work. One thing that I started last year and is nearing completion is the idea of a Chem 101X readiness assessment. This is also on eClass for Chem 101 and another one for Chem 102, just to give students an idea of what they're expected to come into the Chem 101, Chem 102 with as a foundational knowledge. Some of the interests that I also have associated with this are to look at the ability to have mobile annotation. Right now, I'm using a laser pointer. I don't have, in most of the classrooms, the ability to annotate on top of the screen. The technology does exist. It's just that it's not in the classroom computers to allow me to do it for most of them. I want to look at flipped instruction, which is just another instructional strategy. Slowly integrate that in with material that is pretty much a review from high school. There's a lot of opportunities for pedagogical scholarship associated with what's going on here. Excuse me. Look at, and there has some general discussions with regards to a Chem 101X workbook or textbook as we try to figure out where the program is running. It's also the potential for a revenue generation within first-year chemistry. I mentioned earlier that Alberta Education is doing curriculum revisions, or we need to know what's going on there. I met up with a few of my friends at Alberta Education this past summer, and they told me that for the next 3 years, they're going to completely rewrite the K-12 curriculum for rolling out period in 2016. The opportunity arises for us to step in and have an idea of what's happening in the K-12 system, and also to potentially guide such that we're not guiding them into university, but we're just ensuring that it makes logical sense and that we know what they're coming out of high school with, so that Chem 10X actually builds on the material that they're coming out of high school with. Regarding this relationship with Alberta Education, Nelson Publishing are the primary publishers of the Chem 2030 textbook. I was involved with reviewing the last edition of the textbook. That was a lot of fun because Dr. Gelmini and I sat down and we came up with a whole bunch of observations and recommended changes, and pretty much none of them got accepted. I understand that that's standard practice, but we were pretty hurt at the time. We put a lot of time and effort into this. But on that being said, I also know that the lead editor for Nelson has since retired, and so I've kind of suggested that if they're looking for a new lead editor, I might know someone who might be interested in it, and I'm a lot more open to suggestions and corrections to improve the instructional material. All right, that's it. I would like to thank a lot of people, the people who did a majority of the assistance getting me on this link. Kim Peacock was the person who provided the workshops through CTL, and she's been a very valuable resource when I go, how do I do this? And gets the response pretty good. Dave Lowry is the emergency response person that you get a response from when you send an email there. And when things don't work or when I want different features, he's been really good at helping me with that. Tom Bowman has helped configure the classroom computers and, well, pretty much everywhere I teach. And he's done an amazing job there. And then, of course, Chuck and Alex. Well, Chuck anyway. Alex put me up to this presentation. All right, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll gladly try to answer them at this point in time. Thank you.